Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the world of darkness, Changeling menu. We begin our scene on May the 2nd. This holiday used to be known as Beltaine, still is in some circles, but it's also the Night of Iron Knives, the Beltaine massacre, when she massacred a bunch of commoners under what were supposed to be peaceful circumstances, and it set off the events that led to the Accordance War, a massive conflict. So we find our changelings at Taranar. It's a special section set off from Taranar. It's right before you get to the main gate, so anybody is free to go there. The ban that is in force for Alicia, Veronica, and Nathan is not affecting this area. And when you come to it, you see that there's a row of about 120 something odd boats, and they just lead out to this very long lake in the mist cover, and you can't quite see where they're going. But everybody is loading up into there, and they're all very somberly dressed in black. They have their veils on and that kind of thing. A couple of them have candles with them that aren't lit yet, but obviously in preparation for it. And they're all very quietly, somberly filling up the boats. And the boats, once they're full, they just sort of take off into a very specific direction. And we shall begin our scene here.
Sir Aidan, knowing well what was lost, appears in what could be the first time anyone in this congregation has ever seen him not in full armor. He's wearing a black velvet doublet, loose black hosing, and has his squire carrying the shield that he normally has on him, but over it is a black cloth so that no one can see the shield or what's behind it. Sir Aidan merely waits at the boat with a candle ready to be lit, waiting for others to join him.
At this point, a lone woman comes, and she has a veil on her head and a candle by her, and she comes and stands by Sir Aidan. The rest of my retinue seems to have left me. There's still room, right?
Yes, milady, there is room always.
And she gives a short nod to him, and enters into the boat and takes her candle with her.
The tall, slender figure, all in black with black lace, can be seen walking slowly towards the boats, carrying looks to be a picture frame with some candles in it behind it. And she walks up to the boat, and it looks like it's the one that's loading. And it's Alicia. She looks very sad. You can barely see her face behind the veil. May I come aboard?
No, please leave.
She
At this, the Countess and turns her head to look and see who the note was delivered to. She just kind of notes it and turns back away.
She shrugs, walks over to the next boat that's empty, gets in it.
Someone who fought for the commoners and the terrible things they did to these children should not be here. Aidan just quietly sits down and looks to be very deep in contemplation.
Alicia kind of just sits down on the boat, holding the picture frame.
Very unlike Nathan, he is sitting in a boat, completely silent, just thinking, wondering. This particular night, the stories. Tears just start rolling down his cheeks.
Next to Nathan appears Green Summers, dressed in black. Not business black like he sometimes do, but ceremonial. He sits next to Nathan, takes a look at him, nods quietly, and stares forward.
A tall, slender gentleman walks forwards, his clothes as if the colour had run from it, fallen to the ground, leaving only blacks and greys. Walks towards the boat containing Sir Aidan and the Countess. A single white rose rests in his hand, no flame or flicker, no sense of life upon his face or upon his person. He nods to them and asks for leave to enter the boat.
My lord, Countess Anne says, nodding towards him. It's good to see you.
It's sad when we only see each other at such fallen times. And he steps upon the boat.
And at that, with their particular boat, he made it full. They're at max capacity, and the boat begins to take off. It joins the other boats in a long, very somber line, and you can see around you that through the mist, roots are coming up out of the water, very gracefully, very purposefully, and they're twisting together, and the more you start to go through the mist and stuff, the more clearer it becomes. These twisting roots, they're coming more and more out of the water more frequently, and they're eventually making columns in the sky. And after about 5 minutes, it's not very long at all, of just going through there and watching all of that, you see actually that from the water, these huge columns have made sort of a cathedral that extends wildly into the sky. You can't even tell how high it goes up. You can see, however, nestled in the branches are carved names. And for any of you that have past lives, for any of you that lived through this, you might recognize some of the names that are on there. They're the names of the dead, of all the commoners. And you can see that some people have nestled candles in the branches and so forth. There's not a lot of commotion. The boats are very slowly winding their way through there, but you can also see that some changelings, as if they knew what to do, they've perhaps been to this event before, they're stepping out of the boats and they're walking on the water, in fact, over to the trees and so forth to put their candle next to a specific name or next to a specific tree. And some of you might notice, actually, that there's a tree that's filled with names of puka, and there's a tree that's filled with the names of some knockers, and there's actually quite a few Ishu and Slua. And the boats are taking them through, and Countess Anne turns to the night earlier, and she goes, "Is there anybody here that you're mourning?"
I was one of the ones fighting when the children were massacred. We were separated from all of them. I mourn every single name on that tree, as it is, I believe, my fault. He merely takes his candle, puts it beside the tree with all his children's names, and lights it, kind of kneeling and waiting, praying, slightly crying.
The changelings don't have a particular faith that they all subscribe to uniformly. So it's just whatever god or faith the individual has. Perhaps they had it before they knew what they were, before the chrysalis.
Nathan gets out of the boat with a single candle, and he walks towards the place with the poker. He places the candle. This is for you, my brother. I wish you were still here, but you're no longer here. You're never to return. I miss you.
Green also has a small candle and puts it to the tree with the knockers. Mumbles something that could be understood as
From far, far away of the gathered changelings, there stands a lone Slua next to the tree of Slua names, and he holds a wine bottle with him, clutches it actually to his chest. He goes ahead and alternatively takes large swigs of it, drinks heavily, and spills it on the ground as well. One for me, one for my brothers, just a somber prayer repeated over and over and over again. The lights already having been lit. And the whispered agony is slight, because the agony of Slua can only reach so many ears, even if it's just his own.
When Alicia's boat pulls up, she gets out holding the picture frame and walks over to the first one, detaches a part of it, puts it down. It's several pictures with names. They've been drawn on it, like portraits. And she goes to every single tree and does the same thing. And the people standing at the tree see that it's actually the pictures with the names of the people that are on there. And each one she stops and says their name and then says sorry. And then she gets to the tree with the kids. She puts down the little candle thing. It's got 26 candles with names on them. And she lights them all. And then she says, I'm sorry. And then she goes and stands off a ways from them.
High up in the branches, just kind of appearing out behind one of the trunks, there's Ernest Wild, and he's sort of quietly mumbling, barely audible. He's just speaking, slowly, quietly. Anybody that has ears long enough to hear would hear a long, low, rambling story being told.
Walking towards the issue tree, the Duke places the flower in one of the knots, one of the small kind of holes resting in the tree. And the flower seems to grow, the stem seems to grow up and around the branches. Any who see this see that it matches numerous other strands of wood. You seem to number exactly how many years since the great event. And as it grows and wraps itself around one branch, entwining it, it grows dark and dim, and it begins to meld into the wood itself, as if it grew there naturally. He puts his hand against the tree, closes his eyes, and mumbles to himself for a moment.
Medront has not been making his usual appearance, even though he is wearing his usual armor. He has actually acted as an escort to what appears to be a relatively young Slua, who has, she has actually lit some candles for the Slua tree, and a special candle for the childlings. And Metro Millie has escorted her and escorts her back to the boats before even giving any note to anyone else in the area.
Countess Anne is looking impatient. Keeps on trying to catch Duke Kyle's eye. She gets up and walks out of the boat. She picks a tree. She's careful. It's close to that issue tree, but not deliberately up there. And she puts her candle in there. She doesn't recognize the names. It's not that this isn't a sad time, but just hard for her. Her father never talked about it much, and she was born after this. Not her war. Anyways, she lights her candle. Again, tries to catch the Duke's eye.
The Duke looks at her for a moment, nods to her, and begins to walk slowly towards her.
Duke Kyle, I do apologize for having to meet you under these circumstances, but nobody else would listen to me.
What's the matter?
I've been trying to get into contact with Count Enoch. He won't talk to me. Worried about his commander. Draghad?
What's the matter? Go on.
He was working Canada, and we didn't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem when some scathach starts yelling at us, accusing us. He's being very sloppy.
Accusing herself, and he looks around and ensures none others are near. Doing what has to be done.
Yes. I don't know the details, but it was enough for somebody outside our kingdom, a scathach, to come yelling at us.
It should be looked into. Thank you for coming to me.
Thank you. Something just gets me frustrated. Thank you for listening.
Is there anything else I should be made aware of?
Might need to look into the scathach.
Naturally.
Thank you.
And the Duke rests his hand on her shoulder and whispers some words as if in remorse for the loss of people. Keep your ears low and continue to inform me whatever you find. And he begins to walk away and towards the tree of the children.
As Duke Kyle approaches the tree with the children, he will, of course, see Sir Aidan slumped, crying, with the squire standing close by, also tears in its eyes. And he's just... You can tell, without even having to glance at it, that the man is shaken and unlike many changelings, he is not faking, not doing this because he has to, but he is generally ashamed and sad that these children died.
The Duke approaches the gentleman. A personal loss?
The commoners routed us. Commoners routed us. We lost the children. We lost them. They died. Iron knives. We lost them. It was all our fault.
We can't always continue to live with guilt towards such things. But remembering them, getting together and saying that this shall not be, is what we can do. And the Duke bends down and just touches the roots of the tree. Stands back up.
Nathan, after crying for a long time at the memorial for his brother, walks towards Sir Aidan and places his hand on the shoulder. You did your best.
I was so young, so new. I wasn't used to leading anything. We got separated. Everyone got separated. It's because we failed. These children are dead.
Yeah. Innocent lives were lost. I hope that will never happen again.
I hope to never see another Knights of Iron Knives. There's blame on both sides, but children, they were just children.
Children. The ones that should always be spared.
Now Sam is finally making her way back towards the boat when she catches the sigil of House Aileal. She doesn't recognize who the boy's under. Very quietly, as discreetly as she can, walks over to him. How are you, Morning?
Midra bows politely.
A sad night to be sure. Unfortunately, it's before my time, but makes the event no less tragic. I'm sorry. I'm the Countess Anne Nieliund. I don't believe I met you before.
I am new to the city. Baron Nedra, Fordham of Island. Pleasure to make your acquaintance, even under these circumstances.
Have you met with our Duke Kyle?
I did have the pleasure of making my introductions to the court too.
In that case, I think you should meet with me later.
I will be glad to.
Oh, you'll forgive me. I feel exhausted. I must return to the boat. And she gives him a little nod and walks away.
Nods courteously.
As Green walks past every tree, stopping at each tree, saying a few words of peace, he eventually sees the Slua whispering and also stops by the tree of Naslua. Says, a shame.
But, the Slua says in whispered voices, we knew better. We knew better. We trusted. We trusted.
We all did, General.
Never again. Never again. We'll know next time. We'll know, Green. We will know.
Let's just hope there will never be a next time like this.
Great. This will continue spilling his wine into the roots of the tree, offering it the nourishment of his anguish, as well as his accompanying retinue of different Slua as well. Ever again. Green, why does honor cost so much?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Know this, Green. You will have the same trap set before you, and you will have to make a choice. What is more important? Your honor, your duty, or your life? One will have to give.
For the other to succeed. Yes.
What do you remember of this time, this hellish time of turmoil?
Unfortunately, this happened before my time, but he looks to the knocker tree. My father was a victim of it.
I do thank you for your time in remembrance of my kind, but I think your time is better spent with your own people.
I think all of these should have a moment of thought.
We still mourn in our own way. Like I said, the choice between honor or duty or survival. It's always been down to our kind to choose. And this is the cost. He looks to the tree and gestures towards the thousands upon thousands of candles and the already spilt wine at the roots of the tree. This is the cost of honor.
Green looks at all of the candles and the wine. I should visit my hometown again someday. I should.
Do so now, while you have the chance, while you're still young and can travel such a long distance. Don't grow old like me. Don't grow old like me and have to sit your ass someplace and have to give orders to people without actually, connecting back in with your own kind. Don't do that.
Would you like to come with me, General, to my hometown? It's actually quite close.
My duty takes me elsewhere, but I do appreciate the offer. You're a good boy, Green. You're a good boy.
I know. And with that, he continues to walk past the trees.
The Duke rises from next to the charge tree, nods at Sir Aidan, and begins to walk back. His feet barely even touching the water as he walks across it. And he sits back in the boat, his head bowed, but surveying all those around, with the movement of each. Even now, he can't give up on the old games.
Sir Aidan, tired and shaking, stands and leans against his squire as they both make their way back to the boat, sitting quietly next to Duke Guile. Tears no longer falling from his face, and yet still he shakes every once in a while as if trying to hold back tears of sadness, years of sadness.
After that, they sit quietly in the boat for just a few minutes before an elderly, grandmotherly satyr and two satyr childlings come with her. The implication is that the parents are gone. They enter into the boat, and at that point the boat is full and begins its relatively quick return back to the little docking bay that was outside of Taranar. The mists begin to pull back. You see less of the branches, they start to disappear, and the form of the great castle that is Taranar, nestled above the Catskill Mountains, comes back into view. As it docks, and Countess stands up.
Countess,
Yes.
will you join me for a while, for a walk?
She looks quickly at the Knight Sir Aidan and then back to the Duke. Yes, I would quite like that.
He extends his arm and waits for her. Gets out of the boat and extends his arm to put her out.
She takes his hand and climbs out.
And then begins to walk off.
Once the other two nobles exit the boat, Aidan climbs out, helps the elderly lady that had gotten into the boat, and then quietly makes his way to what is where some of his friends who could not go, some of the people that he's been talking to, some of the guards, and he quietly goes to speak with the soldiers, those who are still stationed here, to sit with them, to hear them, to laugh and talk with them, and if necessary, to cry with them.
Green, once he got out the boat, he starts to walk around a bit until he sees the issue, Ernest Wild, and he slowly makes his way over to the issue. Hello, Ernest.
Oh, hi, Green. How are you?
Sad.
Sad
Bitter.
kind of night, isn't it?
Yeah. You were here to remember someone in particular?
Oh, You could say that. You could say that. I'm here to tell them stories. Tell them what's been going on.
I'm sure they would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Were you around when this happened?
No. I've had it revealed to me that in a past time, I was between times. If that makes, if you understand.
Yes, I do.
I was between times.
I remember nothing of my past lives. But there is someone here that I remember.
Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
Well, peace be to you. Know that not all fate is answered in what we see.
I guess. We're also... See... Knockers, we don't understand people. We don't know how they think. We don't know. That's why we keep our creations, our golems, our machines. And when we turn to them, we start to think, we understand these, but we don't understand people. And because we don't understand people, horrible things like this tend to happen.
Yeah. Well, it happens when our natures intermingle. We're not sure of where we stand. Ah, silly refugees, if they only knew.
Hmm. Well, it was good talking to you again, Ernest.
Yeah, we'll have merrier times in future, I know. There'll be better times.
I know.
There will always be better times, even in the coming winter. There will be better times.
Well, I guess we all have a target to out our frustration, sadness, and anger on.
Or you could just let them go. That is an option, you know.
Not for me.
Okay.
Maybe
That's
it
your
was someone
fate.
else.
There you are.
Well then. See you, Ernest.
Goodbye.
Nathan
Ernest.
is... Sorry.
Ernest was getting ready to walk up the tree again.
Nathan, being one of the last to get off the boat, stands and wonders as he sees a group of Changelings run past. So young, so innocent. And I wish I could shield them from the pain, from the heartache. But people need to remember the night of the Iron Knives, because if we remember, perhaps we can prevent it in the future. And he walks up to the children that play and starts to tell the story of the Knight of Iron Knights.
Alicia slowly gets off the boat. She walks down the road a little bit and sees all the nobles getting into their carriages and walking into Taranar, and all the commoners on foot walking the other way. And she looks both to the left and to the right, visibly wiping away tears of mascara on her hands. And she bows her head a little bit, still looking both directions, and then starts walking off in a third path by herself. Slowly, quietly.
Veronica very quietly gets back into her boat. It looks like that's maybe Alicia, she can't tell from this distance. This has really given her some time to think. And she's going to write her will when she gets home that night. See about getting in contact with a lawyer. You know, just in case. Oh, right. And then the Slua they were waiting on gets back in the boat, and Veronica and her boat are taken back.
If the Slua get back on the boat, then one particular Slua recognizes one particular she. He goes ahead and looks at her, observes her just for a second. A visible sliver of anger and violence pauses through him, but it slowly dissipates.
And I think we're going to call this scene. For all of you watching, thank you for watching and have a good night.